I'm Douglas Spio, and I am the director of the Center for European Studies. We have a Title VI grant from the federal government, and before that we were at EU Center of Excellence. And years ago I asked Jamie if he would come up with some idea for an event that we could help sponsor. And he came up with this idea. I think this is the fourth or fifth iteration of it. For some reason, he credits me with putting this together, but really he's put it together, and I'm grateful that he's allowed me to put my signature on this program because it looks like an amazing event. We're in the business of helping to finance good ideas with people who do interesting things, and this is one of our best events every other year that we could possibly imagine. So thank you for doing it again, Jamie. This is really a spectacular program. I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and as you may have guessed, I am James Galbraith, and the convener of this event. I want to welcome you and to thank, to begin with, Doug Dio for his initial suggestion that this kind of thing could happen, and for his support over now 5 iterations of a conference in this general vein. I'd like to welcome you all, also on behalf of Dean Angela Evans of the LBJ School, who's provided very effective and steadfast support for this event, who's unable to be here for personal reasons this week. This is a conference which originated in 2011 as a discussion. The idea was that we would have a discussion on a intercontinental, bicontinental level of the emerging problems of the European Union, in particular of the Eurozone. And it has evolved on a biennial basis since then through a discussion of a range of problems, including the structures of democratic functioning in both continents. And we thought that this year, and it was at the origin, by the way, of the, among other things, the Democracy in Europe movement, has been very much an opportunity for people of real talent and energy, serious purpose, also expertise, dedication, to come to Austin and to have a chance to spend a couple of days talking intensively with each other in front of an audience of interested students and other participants from the community about the very much ongoing and current and evolving problems that we all face. And for this iteration of this event, it seemed to us, and I'm very much indebted to David Adler as well for his ideas as we structured this conference, to take on one of the most, perhaps the most, compelling challenge that future generations are going to face, which is the climate crisis. And to do so in the context of an image or a metaphor which has come to express in very general terms the idea that we really should be doing something effective and something dramatic and something that will make a difference as far as future generations are concerned. And that image and metaphor, as it happens, is the metaphor of a New Deal, which brings to mind, of course, a particularly American experience. And so we thought that it would be useful to explore the project that is before us all, both in Europe and America, also everywhere in the world, but in the context of these meetings, Europe and America, in view of, in part, of the historical experience of the New Deal of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And that became the kind of organizing principle of this meeting. The New Deal is a historical and political reality. It's an economic reality. But it's also one whose true nature has been, to a certain degree, lost in the mist of time and in the distortions of purpose that various people have had in attempting to review these or to bring these events to bear on on their agendas for the present time. There are people who argue that the New Deal didn't accomplish very much, and it was only the Second World War that made a significant difference to the functioning of the American and the world economy. There is a lot of evidence against that view, and a lot of that evidence is visible around this town and our immediate surroundings. And you can see it in the Texas Tower, Adobe dorms. You can see it at the Mansfield Dam. You can see the New Deal if you look for it, practically all across, certainly the South, the Southwest, and much of the country. Some years ago, around 2010, I was invited to a conference at the very last minute of the Council on Foreign Relations, the theme of which was that the New Deal had actually obstructed economic recovery. That was going a bit far. And the reason I was invited was to evidently to lend an aura of modest respectability to an otherwise completely nutty event at the Council on Foreign Relations, which I was happy to do, because if someone needs respectability and I can provide it, I mean, that is really quite something. But our purpose here is substantially more serious and I think better informed than that. It is to evoke the character of the New Deal and to discuss it in context of the problems that we face now. The New Deal, which was experimental, which was pragmatic, which was transformative, which developed over time in a way which was not linear, and was not necessarily always advancing, but involved a certain number of tactical and strategic retreats along the way, but which nevertheless, over the course of a decade or so, had a profound effect and created a system which was not socialism, which was not capitalism, but which was a distinctive and functional system on which this country relied and developed, from which it developed over a course of several generations thereafter. And our thinking is that as we take on the climate crisis, we think about what we have to do. We have to have something of the same spirit in mind. And we have to understand that this is not simply an engineering problem. It is not simply an economic problem. It is also a problem of the organization of society. It's a problem of our political life. It's a problem of our culture. It's a problem of our educational system. It's a problem which requires us to rethink how we function and to do so in a way which addresses a range of, let's say, related, I won't say subsidiary, but related problems that we are already, to a degree, engaged with. And so the idea today was to bring together, I don't know, we have maybe 30 people who have come in from all over Europe, as well as Canada, and also from Taiwan, to discuss these questions, and to do so in a kind of sequential and progressive way. We will begin with a panel that deals with the New Deal itself and provides a series of historical and political interpretations. Proceed to a panel on the economics, particularly the broad macroeconomic framework that would be involved in doing something similar with respect to our societies today, with respect to, in particular, the project of a Green New Deal and an energy transformation. The third panel will take up the specific questions of climate and energy and resources and how best to think about achieving that transition within the time frame that's available to us in order to make it successful and effective. The fourth panel will deal with social and political and labor policy and those issues that are required to make the society willing to make the society believe, hopefully correctly, that by taking this path they will not only be able to survive, but will actually survive well and live well and be better off in many ways than they would have been if we had not taken this path. And a fifth panel tomorrow morning will take up the particular question, which was at the heart of the original New Deal and very much at the beginning of it with the introduction and passage of the Emergency Banking Act in 1933, namely how one gets a handle on the financial sector, which is presently in the driver's seat of our economy and our societies, and how one makes it once again into a servant and an effective conduit for the larger purposes that we have to pursue. And then a final panel will revisit these themes with a selection of the people who are here in order to give us a kind of synthesis and a wrap-up and a path forward toward a next New Deal. So I'm really thrilled to have been able to convene this group. You will see, and you have from your programs, a sense of who is here. I think it's really quite a remarkable collection of accomplishment, energy, talent, capacity. With that, I would like to yield the floor briefly to someone who was not able to be here in person, but who was very much at the origin of the project of these meetings and very much at the origin of the particular project of this one. Yanis Varoufakis first came to Texas in 2011 to be the keynote speaker of the first of these meetings and to present something that we called the modest proposal to resolve the problems of the Eurozone. It's the level of modesty involved is certainly a debatable point, but I have a needle point in my house in Vermont which expresses Galbraith's first law, the Galbraith in question being my father, and states that modesty is a vastly overrated virtue. So in any event, Yanis came to make that presentation in 2011, returned in 2013, and once again 2 years ago. So he's been very much a mainstay. He was a colleague here for 2 years, and in between time he's had a, let's say, modestly interesting career, including 5 months as the Minister of Finance, which I had a chance to work with him quite closely. And he's now not here. The reason he's not here is that he was elected to be a member of parliament, and leader of a new parliamentary faction in Greece, which is Mira 25, the Greek version of the Democracy in Europe movement. So with that, I will yield the floor briefly to Yanis Varoufakis, and then I will turn it over to our first chair momentarily.
Hello, this is Yanis Varoufakis. Greetings from Cambridge, where I'm having a pit stop in between lots of political events. The conference in which you are participating has a fine tradition. It began in 2011. I was proud and lucky to have been part of it. In the midst of the Eurozone crisis, as it was commencing, we had a number of discussions that were prescient. Unfortunately, our conclusions were utterly dismissed, and the result was that the Eurozone crisis got out of hand, and it is still proliferating and morphing into different varieties of discontent. Jamie Galbraith deserves a vote of thanks from all of us for having set up this very useful forum for an exchange of ideas about Europe's lost way. Together, since 2011, we have been working on a new deal for Europe, a Green New Deal for Europe. It started life as what we originally referred to as a modest proposal for the Eurozone. Since then, in 2015, we were in the belly of the beast in Brussels, in Athens, in Frankfurt together, as part of the attempt to extricate Greece from the debtor's prison that was the repercussion of the Eurozone's faulty architecture. Immediately after the failure of that attempt to escape debtor's prison on behalf of the Greek people, Jamie and I, together with many colleagues from the Democracy in Europe movement, DiEM25, that was inaugurated in Berlin in 2016, we sat down and produced a very significant paper on a Green New Deal for Europe, which became the basis of our manifesto for this year's European Parliament elections. Since the Eurozone crisis eruption, and in particular, the Obama administration's failure to come to grips with the post-2008 challenges and the repercussions of the 2008 crisis, a variety of new deals have emerged in the United States, in Europe. This conference, which compares and contrasts the various New Deals in Europe and the United States is essential. And it is essential because a lot of the Green New Deal narrative these days is missing important components of Roosevelt's original New Deal. We should not copy the New Deal of the 1930s, but there are elements, especially the way in which public bonds need to be utilized in order to soak up excess liquidity and press it into the service of humanity's needs through good quality jobs and the green transition. These are elements that are lacking in a variety of New Deals, especially in the United States these days, which is an irony. I'm sure that with your deliberations during this conference, you will be able to make a major contribution to how the New Deal, the original New Deal, can become the inspiration for the tasks ahead. While I couldn't be there in person, my spirit, to whatever it's worth, is going to be with you.